Little girl's final journey returns from death with God's message from heaven. The Grand Hall of the United Nations General Assembly fell silent as I approached the podium. 3,000 pairs of eyes fixed upon me, world leaders, diplomats, media, all waiting to hear what a 16-year-old girl from Boston had to say. My hands trembled as I gripped the edges of the wooden stand, the weight of my testimony pressing down on my shoulders like a physical force. 3 months ago, I died for 3 minutes. The words caught in my throat. Memories flooded back, the screeching tires, the impact, the blinding light, and then the message, the divine warning that had brought me to this moment. Suddenly, the room began to spin. The bright lights above seemed to pulse and flicker. I could feel my heart racing, pounding against my chest as if trying to break free. The faces before me blurred into a sea of colors. Emily, Father Michael's concerned voice came from somewhere behind me. He had been my spiritual guide since that fateful day, helping me understand the profound responsibility of what I'd been shown. I tried to focus, to push through, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. The last thing I saw before darkness claimed me was my father, Dr. James Wright, breaking protocol and rushing toward the stage. The same father who had spent years dismissing faith as primitive superstition was now running to catch his daughter, the reluctant prophet. As consciousness slipped away, I heard the familiar voice, the one from my vision, gentle yet powerful. Remember, child. They must know. They must all know. I collapsed. The hall erupted in chaos. Cameras flashed. People shouted. Through the commotion, I could barely make out my father's voice. Emily, someone get a doctor. But even as my body betrayed me, my mind remained sharp, focused on the message I had to deliver. The world needed to hear the truth about the coming darkness, about the choice humanity faced, about the power of faith and love to change our destiny. This was not how I had planned to begin my testimony, but then again, nothing in my life had gone according to plan since the day I died and came back with a warning from heaven. As the darkness took me, I prayed for strength, because this was only the beginning of my story, a story of death and rebirth, of skepticism and faith, of a father and daughter's journey from doubt to belief, and of a message that would change everything. Before I collapse, my vision blurs, but my heart remains clear. If you believe in this message, in the power of truth and hope, please subscribe to share our journey of faith together. I never imagined I would be here, testifying before the world's leaders about a divine message. Looking back, my life before that fateful day seems like another world entirely, a world where faith was nothing more than a comforting fantasy for the weak-minded, as my father always said. I grew up in a home where science reigned supreme. My father, Dr. James Wright, was a renowned neurologist at Massachusetts General Hospital, a man who believed only in what could be proven in a laboratory. After we lost my mother Claire in a car accident when I was 7, he buried himself even deeper in his research, as if understanding the human brain could somehow fill the void she left behind. Then came the second tragedy. My younger sister Sarah, always the sensitive one, the believer, began having visions when she was 14. She would wake up screaming in the night, talking about warnings from heaven about darkness coming. Father dismissed it as teenage anxiety, prescribed medication, and insisted on therapy. But Sarah knew what she had seen was real. One morning we found her room empty, her diary lying open on her bed. She had taken her own life, unable to bear the weight of what she had been shown and the pain of not being believed. I was 13 then, and her death changed everything. I became angry at God, if he existed, at Sarah for leaving us, at my father for his stubborn disbelief. I threw myself into science, determined to prove that everything had a rational explanation. I joined the debate club, became known as the girl who could tear apart any religious argument with cold, hard logic. I was good at it too, won state championships arguing against the existence of God. The irony doesn't escape me now. Our home became a fortress of rationality. Father and I moved through our days like well-programmed robots, each of us avoiding the empty spaces where faith and feeling should have been. We had our routine: breakfast at 7, school for me, hospital for him, dinner at 6 where we discussed neuroscience and college plans, never the holes in our hearts that Mother and Sarah left behind. I was determined to follow in his footsteps, to become a scientist who could explain away all the mysteries of the universe. I had my whole future mapped out, pre-med at Harvard, then medical school, a life dedicated to proving that everything had a logical explanation. But as they say, God has a way of finding you, especially when you're running as fast as you can in the opposite direction. Looking back now, I can see how he was preparing me all along. Every debate I won against faith gave me the skills to defend it later. Every scientific fact I learned would help me bridge the gap between belief and reason. Even my stubborn skepticism would serve a purpose after all. Who better to convince doubters than someone who once stood firmly in their shoes? But back then, I was just Emily Wright, the 16-year-old daughter of Boston's most prominent atheist, a girl who thought she had all the answers. I had no idea that in just a few months, everything I believed about reality, faith, and my own purpose would be turned upside down. And it all began with a single moment, a moment that would end my old life and begin something entirely new. My last normal day started like any other. I woke up early to help the debate team prepare for nationals, where we would argue against the existence of miracles. The irony still makes me smile sometimes. Lucy Martinez, my best friend since kindergarten, met me at my locker chattering about college applications and her latest crusade to start a science club. "We need more girls in STEM," she declared, adjusting her perfectly straight dark hair. "Plus, it'll look great on our Harvard applications." I nodded, already thinking about the debate practice ahead. That was my world, then a place of facts, figures, and carefully constructed arguments. A world where everything made sense, where every question had a logical answer. During lunch, I sat with my usual group, the academic achievers, the future doctors and scientists. We were the ones who stayed late in the chemistry lab, who spent weekends preparing for academic competitions. Today, the conversation revolved around Mr. Peterson's latest physics assignment and Sarah Chen's perfect SAT score. But even then, there were cracks in my perfectly rational world. Sometimes, late at night, I would find myself drawn to Sarah's old diary hidden away in my desk drawer. I never told anyone, not even Lucy, but I had memorized every word of her final entry. They won't believe me, Em, but you will. When it's your time, you'll understand. The truth isn't always in textbooks. Sometimes it's written in your soul. I would slam the drawer shut, angry at myself for even considering such nonsense. But the words lingered like a shadow at the edge of my consciousness. After school, I headed to the hospital to meet Dad for our weekly dinner. Massachusetts General Hospital was like a second home to me. The staff all knew me Little Dr. Wright, they called me, though I wasn't so little anymore. I found comfort in the sterile hallways, the beeping machines, the smell of disinfectant. Here, everything had a scientific explanation. Dad's office was exactly what you'd expect from a renowned neurologist, walls lined with brain scans, certificates, and academic awards. No family photos, not anymore. Those had disappeared along with Mom and Sarah. He looked up from his microscope as I entered, offering a small smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Ready for your debate tomorrow?" he asked, already knowing the answer. I was always ready. "Obviously," I replied, settling into my usual chair. "We're arguing against divine intervention in medical recoveries. I've got studies from the last 20 years showing that prayer has no statistically significant effect on patient outcomes." He nodded approvingly, but something flickered across his face. Was it pain? Regret? It was gone before I could be sure. We walked to our favorite Italian restaurant, discussing the latest developments in neuroscience. Dad was working on a paper about consciousness being purely a product of brain chemistry. Once we understand the mechanics, he often said, we'll finally put all this supernatural nonsense to rest. I believed him then. Believed in his vision of a world where everything could be measured, tested, and proven. A world without mysteries, without miracles, without the need for faith. Looking back now, I want to reach through time and shake that self-assured girl. Tell her that the universe is so much bigger, so much more wonderful and terrifying than she could imagine. That some truths can't be captured in a lab report or reduced to a mathematical equation. But that Emily had to learn these things for herself, and she would sooner than she knew, because the next morning everything would change. The girl who didn't believe in miracles would experience one firsthand. The daughter of Boston's most famous atheist would become a messenger of divine truth. But first she had to die. The morning started like any other. I stepped out of our brownstone on Beacon Street, the autumn air crisp against my skin. The leaves were just beginning to turn, painting the streets of Boston in shades of gold and crimson. It was October 10th, a date now forever etched in my memory, though for reasons I couldn't have imagined. I was running late for debate practice. We were preparing for the state finals, where I would argue against religious experiences being anything more than neurological phenomena. I had my presentation perfectly prepared, complete with citations from neuroscience journals and psychological studies. Emily Lucy called from across the street, waving her debate notes. "Did you see the latest study about near-death experiences? It's perfect for our argument." I remember checking my phone as I stepped off the curb, calling back to her, "Send me the link." That's when I heard the screech of tires. Time slowed. I turned my head to see a blue SUV sliding on the wet pavement, the driver's face frozen in horror behind the windshield. Later I would learn he had fallen asleep at the wheel after a double shift at the hospital. In that moment, though, all I could think was, this is how Mom felt. The impact wasn't what I expected. There was no pain, just a sudden sensation of flying. I saw my books scattered across the pavement, pages fluttering like broken wings. I heard Lucy screaming, saw her running toward me, her face contorted in terror. Then everything went white. The medical report would later state that I was clinically dead for 3 minutes and 17 seconds. My heart stopped. My brain showed no activity. By all scientific measures, the very measures I had built my life around, I ceased to exist. But I didn't cease to exist. I experienced something that would shatter every belief I held dear. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not just an absence of sound, but a profound stillness that seemed to fill every part of my being. The white light softened, became golden, warm like summer sunshine. And then I heard her voice. "Em." Sarah stood before me, exactly as I remembered her 15 forever, her dark hair falling in waves around her face, her eyes bright with the light that had always burned within her. But she wasn't the troubled, haunted girl from her final days. She was radiant, at peace. "Sarah," my voice caught in my throat. "This isn't real. This is just my dying brain creating comforting hallucinations. There's research about this." She smiled, that gentle smile that had always made me feel safe. "Still trying to explain everything away, little sister? Some things can't be explained. They can only be experienced." Before I could argue, because even here, even now, I wanted to argue, another presence filled the space. I can't describe it in human terms. It was like being embraced by pure love, pure understanding, pure truth. And with that presence came the visions. I saw what was coming. Not in clear images like a movie, but in waves of understanding that crashed over me. I saw darkness spreading, hearts growing cold, humanity turning against itself. But I also saw hope-thin golden threads of possibility, chances for change, moments of choice that could alter everything. "This is why I couldn't stay," Sarah said softly. "The visions, they were too much. I wasn't strong enough. But you are, Em. You always have been." "I don't understand," I whispered, though understanding was already beginning to flood through me. "You will," she replied. "And this time you won't be alone. Dad needs to hear the truth as much as anyone, maybe more." The presence grew stronger, and with it came a certainty I had never known. This wasn't a hallucination. This wasn't my oxygen-deprived brain creating fantasies. This was more real than anything I had ever experienced. Then the pain started distant at first, then growing stronger. The golden light began to fade. "It's time," Sarah said. "Remember Em. Remember everything. And know that I'm with you." I wanted to stay, wanted to ask her so many questions, but I was being pulled back to a world of sirens and screaming, of cold pavement and Lucy's tears, of my father's voice breaking as he begged me to hold on. I was going back, but I wasn't going back the same. I came back to the sound of my father's voice, raw with emotion in a way I'd never heard before. Please, Emily, please come back. I can't lose you too. The harsh fluorescent lights of the emergency room seared my eyes. Everything hurt my body, felt like it had been shattered and poorly reassembled. But my mind was crystal clear, filled with a certainty and purpose that transcended the physical pain. She's back, a nurse called out. Dr. Wright, she's responding. My father's face appeared above me, tears streaming down his cheeks. The great rationalist, the man who had built his career on explaining away miracles, was crying. Emily, can you hear me? I tried to speak, but tubes blocked my throat. Instead, I squeezed his hand. And in that moment, I saw him not as Dr. James Wright, renowned neurologist, but as a father who had already lost too much. The next few hours were a blur of tests, scans, and medical procedures. I heard the doctors discussing my case in hushed, amazed tones. Complete cardiac arrest, no brain activity for over 3 minutes, spontaneous recovery, unprecedented. But while they focused on my physical condition, my mind was elsewhere. The visions from my time away played in an endless loop. I saw what was coming, the darkness, the conflict, the choices that would shape humanity's future. And I knew with unshakable certainty what I had to do. Lucy stayed by my bedside once they moved me to a private room. She held my hand, crying and apologizing, though she had nothing to apologize for. I thought I'd lost you, she kept saying, I thought. When they finally removed the breathing tube, my first words surprised everyone, including myself. I need Sarah's diary. My father stiffened. We never spoke about Sarah's diary, about her visions, about her final days. It was forbidden territory. Emily, you need to rest, he said firmly, slipping back into his clinical demeanor. You've been through severe trauma. Your brain is still. Dad, I interrupted, my voice hoarse but steady. Sarah was right, about everything, and now I understand why. The room went silent. Lucy looked between us, confused. She didn't know about Sarah's visions. No one outside our family did. This is post-traumatic stress, Dad began, but I could hear the tremor in his voice. It's common after near-death experiences to have vivid hallucinations. I saw her, I said quietly. She's at peace now, and she wants us to know that what's coming is real. The warnings are real. We have to listen this time. My father turned away, his shoulders rigid. I'll get the doctor. You need something to help you rest. But as he reached for the call button, I spoke again, quoting words I couldn't possibly have known. Sometimes the truth isn't in textbooks, Dad. Sometimes it's written in your soul. He froze. Those were Sarah's exact words from her final diary entry, words I had never read, words he had kept locked away in his office safe since her death. When he turned back to me, his face was pale. How did you? Because she told me, I said simply, and she told me something else too. About your dream last night, about Mom coming to you, about what she said about the butterfly pendant. He sank into the chair beside my bed, all pretense of scientific detachment crumbling. Because he had told no one about that dream. No one could have known. Dad, I said gently, reaching for his hand, I know you're scared. I know you want to explain this away. But some things can't be explained. They can only be experienced. And now we both have. Lucy watched in amazement as the great Dr. Wright, the man who had demolished religious beliefs with scientific precision in countless lectures and papers, began to weep. What do we do? He whispered, sounding lost. We listen, I said. We believe. And we share the warning because that's why I was allowed to come back. The world needs to know what's coming. And this time we need to get it right. Outside my hospital window, a butterfly landed on the glass, its wings the exact shade of gold as the pendant my mother was wearing in my father's dream. We both saw it, both understood. This was just the beginning. The hospital released me 3 days later, but my world had already shifted irreversibly. My father brought Sarah's diary home from his office safe, where it had remained untouched since her death. We sat in our living room, the leather-bound book between us like a bridge across an impossible chasm. Are you sure about this? He asked, his hands trembling slightly as he held the diary. I nodded. We need to understand, Dad. Both of us. Opening the diary, Sarah's familiar handwriting flowed across the pages. As we read together, my breath caught in my throat. The parallels were undeniable. October 10th, 2021, exactly 3 years before my accident. They showed me what's coming. The darkness, the choices, the turning points. Emily will see it too. They told me she's stronger, that she'll finish what I couldn't. Dad, if you're reading this, please believe her when the time comes. The signs will be unmistakable. My father's hand shook harder. This can't be. But it was. Page after page, Sarah had documented visions that matched mine exactly. She'd seen the same conflicts, the same warnings, even described the same golden light. But there was more specific predictions that had already come true in the 3 years since her death. March 15th, 2022, a great leader will fall in the East. His successor will wear a mask of peace but carry war in his heart. December 1st, 2022, the birds will fall from the sky in masses. Scientists will blame disease, but it's a warning. July 8th, 2023, the waters will rise in places they've never reached. People will call it climate change, but it's preparation. My father, the scientist, pulled out his tablet and began cross-referencing the dates. His face grew paler with each confirmation. Every event had happened exactly as Sarah described, down to the smallest detail. There's more, I said softly, turning to the final pages. She wrote about today. October 13th, 2024, EM will be home from the hospital today. Dad will bring my diary. As you read this now, yes, this exact moment a white dove will land on our windowsill. It's not coincidence. Nothing is coincidence anymore. We both turned to the window. There, perched on the narrow sill, was a snow-white dove, watching us with knowing eyes. My father, the man who had built his life on skepticism and scientific proof, let out a choked sob. I failed her, he whispered. She tried to tell me, and I. We can't change the past, I said, taking his hand, but we can honor her by doing what she couldn't. We can share the warning. He looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time since my accident. What do you need me to do? First, we need to understand everything in Sarah's diary. She left us a roadmap, Dad. But it's not just about the predictions, it's about why she couldn't bear them. We need to learn from her struggle so we can do this right. As if in response, the dove cooed softly. My father stood and walked to the window, his scientific mind visibly battling with what his heart now knew to be true. When Sarah first told me about her visions, he said quietly, I prescribed antipsychotics. I told her it was temporal lobe epilepsy, or dissociative episodes, or a dozen other diagnoses. I tried to cure her of the truth. And now. He turned back to me, his face set with a new determination. Now I'm going to help you share it. But Emily, he hesitated. The world can be cruel to prophets. You saw what it did to your sister. I touched the diary's worn cover, feeling Sarah's presence in its pages. That's why she told me I was stronger. Not because I am, but because I won't be alone. She made sure of that. As if confirming my words, my phone buzzed. A text from Lucy. Just saw a white dove outside my window. Something tells me this is about you. I'm coming over. My father and I shared a look of understanding. The pieces were falling into place, just as Sarah had written they would. The world was about to change, and we were about to change with it. The dove took flight, leaving behind a single white feather on the windowsill. A gift, a sign, a promise. The warning had begun. When Lucy arrived, her usually composed demeanor was shaken. She burst through our door without knocking, her dark eyes wide with urgency. Emily, something's happening. I can feel it. And not just the dove, there's more. She pulled out her phone, showing us a news article that had just gone viral. Mass spiritual phenomena reported worldwide, thousands claim identical visions. The timestamp was from just hours ago. It's starting, I whispered, reaching for Sarah's diary. Just like she said it would. Lucy's eyes fell on the open diary, and I saw her scientific mindset wrestling with what she was witnessing. Like me, like my father, she had always believed in the rational, the provable. But now. I read this, I said, handing her the diary. As she read, her hands began to tremble. October 13th, 2024, 4:17 p.m. Lucy will come. She'll bring news of others who've seen. The wall between worlds is thinning and the truth can't be contained anymore. Emily, when she reads this, these exact words tell her about the butterfly. Lucy looked up, her face pale. What butterfly? The one that landed on your windowsill when you were 7, I said softly. The day your grandmother died. The one that had wings the exact color of her favorite brooch. You've never told anyone about it. Not even me. She sank onto the couch, the diary clutched to her chest. How? Because Sarah knew. She saw all of this. And now others are seeing too. My father, who had been quietly observing, suddenly straightened. The lab, he said. I need to show you something. He led us to his home office, where he kept his most important research. From a locked drawer, he pulled out a folder marked Anomalous Brain Activity Studies Classified. 3 months before Sarah, he swallowed hard. Before we lost her, I did a series of scans. I was trying to prove her visions were just temporal lobe seizures. But I found something I couldn't explain, something I've kept hidden because it didn't fit any known scientific paradigm. He spread the scans on his desk. Even to my untrained eye, they were extraordinary. Patterns of neural activity that formed perfect geometric shapes, sequences that repeated with mathematical precision. And now, he continued, pulling up his tablet, look at the scans from when you were technically dead, Emily. They were identical. Lucy, ever the scientist's daughter, began analyzing the patterns. This isn't random activity, she breathed. These are. They look like. Language, my father finished. A language written in neural fire. I've spent 3 years trying to decode it, trying to prove it was just an anomaly. But now we know, I said. It's the language of truth. The message trying to break through. As if in response to my words, all our phones buzzed simultaneously. Another news alert, global reports of spiritual phenomena continue to rise. Religious leaders call for calm as millions report identical visions. We need to go public, Lucy said. Suddenly, her scientific skepticism transformed into purpose. All of it, Sarah's diary, the brain scans, your experience. People need to know they're not alone in what they're seeing. My father nodded slowly. It will end my career in traditional neuroscience, everything I've built. But it might save what's coming, I finished. That's what Sarah was trying to tell us. The truth matters more than reputation, more than comfort, more than everything we thought we knew. The room fell silent as the weight of the decision settled over us. Through the window, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of gold, the same gold as the light in my vision, as Sarah's diary had described, as millions around the world were now seeing. Tomorrow, my father said finally, I'll call a press conference. Present the evidence. Stand with you as you tell your story. Lucy squeezed my hand. And I'll analyze the data. Create graphs, charts, whatever it takes to help people understand. We'll face the skeptics together. I touched Sarah's diary, feeling the warmth of its pages, the weight of its truth. She knew I whispered. She knew we'd all be here, in this moment, making this choice. Outside, a chorus of doves had gathered on the power lines, their white feathers glowing in the golden light. A sign, a witness, a chorus of confirmation. The time for hiding was over. The time for truth had begun. The press conference was held in the Grand Auditorium of Massachusetts General Hospital. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. This temple of science would become the birthplace of a spiritual revolution. News vans lined the street, and reporters from every major network crowded the entrance. My father's reputation had guaranteed a full house, but what we were about to reveal would transcend even his considerable influence. I stood backstage, clutching Sarah's diary. Lucy was beside me, reviewing her presentation of the data won last time. Through the curtain, I could hear the murmur of the gathering crowd, the click of cameras, the rustle of anticipation. Then something unexpected happened. A woman approached us dressed in a simple black suit, her silver hair pulled back in a severe bun. Emily Wright, she asked, her accent distinctly European. I'm Dr. Catherine Reeves from the Vatican's Department of Scientific Investigation. My father tensed immediately. The Vatican? We didn't. "No, you didn't contact us," she interrupted smoothly. "We've been watching, waiting. Your sister Sarah wasn't the first, Emily, and you won't be the last." She opened her briefcase and pulled out a leather-bound folder. Inside were photographs, documents, brain scans identical to Sarah's and mine. These spanned the last century, she explained. All young people, all with the same vision, the same warning. "Why haven't we heard about this?" Lucy demanded, her scientific curiosity piqued. Dr. Reeves smiled sadly. "Because until now, none of them survived the burden of the knowledge. Your sister Sarah was the first to leave us a complete record, and you, Emily, are the first to come back with the full message." The implications hit me like a physical force. The others couldn't bear it, she confirmed. "But you're different. You have something they didn't." "What's that?" my father asked. "A family willing to believe. A father brave enough to question his own beliefs. Friends ready to stand with you." And she paused, pulling out one final document, Sarah's guidance. The paper was yellowed with age, written in Latin. But there in the margin, translated into English, was a prophecy from 1918. "The truth will come through sisters divided by death but united in purpose. The second will succeed where the first could not, because she will not walk alone." My hands trembled as I touched the ancient page. "Why are you showing us this now?" "Because you need to understand the gravity of what's coming. This isn't just about sharing a vision, Emily. It's about preparing humanity for a choice that will determine everything." Before she could elaborate, we heard my father being introduced on stage. Dr. Reeves stepped back, pressing a card into my hand. "We'll talk more. You'll need our help, and we'll need yours." My father's voice filled the auditorium. "Ladies and gentlemen, what I'm about to present will challenge everything I've ever taught, everything I've ever believed. But as a scientist, my duty is to truth, wherever it leads." He began presenting the brain scans, explaining the impossible patterns, the language of light we'd discovered. I watched the audience's reaction through a gap in the curtain, the initial skepticism, the growing wonder, the ripple of realization that something extraordinary was unfolding. Then it was my turn. As I walked onto the stage, the light seemed to pulse with that same golden glow from my vision. I took my place at the podium. Sarah's diary opened before me and began to speak. "3 days ago, I died for 3 minutes and 17 seconds. What I experienced in those moments will change everything we think we know about reality, consciousness, and the future that awaits us all." The room fell completely silent. In that moment, I felt Sarah's presence beside me, supporting me, guiding me. I felt the weight of a century of visionaries who had tried to deliver this message. I felt the responsibility of being the one chosen to finally succeed. "But before I tell you what I saw," I continued, "I need to tell you about my sister Sarah and about a truth that's been trying to reach us for longer than we know." In the back of the auditorium, Dr. Reeves nodded slightly, her expression both grave and hopeful. Beside her, I noticed others in similar black suits, watching intently. The Vatican had sent more than just one observer. Lucy squeezed my hand. My father stood proudly behind me, and I began to share the truth that would change everything. The cameras rolled, broadcasting our revelation to the world, and there was no turning back. The warning had begun, and this time it would be heard. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, Emily Wright was trending worldwide. News channels played clips of my testimony on loop. Social media exploded with accounts of similar visions, people who had been afraid to speak up until now coming forward in waves. But with the attention came the inevitable backlash. Scientific colleagues denounced my father as a fraud. Religious leaders were divided, some embracing our message, others condemning it as heresy. Skeptics launched vicious attacks, dissecting every word, every piece of evidence we presented. "This is exactly what happened to Sarah," I whispered to Lucy as we watched another expert on TV dismiss our evidence as mass hysteria. But something was different this time. For every voice that rose against us, 10 more rose in support. People began sharing their own stories, their own encounters with the divine. The brain scans we'd revealed matched perfectly with thousands of others worldwide. Dr. Reeves proved invaluable. She arranged a meeting at the Vatican, where she revealed the full scope of what they knew. In a chamber deep beneath St. Peter's Basilica, she showed us centuries of documented cases. "Look at this," she said, spreading out yellowed manuscripts. 1318, a young girl in France. 1492, a boy in Spain. 1789, sisters in Russia. 1865, a farmer's son in America. 1918, a nurse in England. All with the same vision, all trying to warn humanity. But none succeeded, my father noted, his scientific mind still cataloging, analyzing. Because humanity wasn't ready, Dr. Reeves explained. We needed both faith and science to come together. We needed someone who could bridge both worlds. She looked at me meaningfully. We needed you, Emily, and your father. The Vatican meetings led to more revelations. Other religious organizations came forward with their own records: Buddhist monasteries, Islamic scholars, Jewish mystics. The pattern was undeniable. The warning had been trying to reach us through every culture, every faith, every generation. But now, something was different. The visions were increasing in frequency and intensity. People weren't just seeing the warning anymore, they were feeling it. A sense of urgency swept the globe. Lucy created a database to track the reports. Look at this pattern, she said one evening, showing us her laptop. The visions are spreading like ripples from specific points around the world. And they all started the moment you came back, Emily. My father leaned in, fascinated. It's like your experience was a key, unlocking something in the collective consciousness. Not unlocking, Dr. Reeves corrected. Awakening. Humanity is waking up to a truth it's always known deep down, but with awakening comes responsibility and danger. She was right about the danger. As our message spread, those with power to lose began to react. Political leaders dismissed us as troublemakers. Corporate interests tried to discredit us. Strange men in dark suits started following us. One night, returning home late from another interview, I found my apartment had been searched. Nothing was taken, but Sarah's diary had been moved, left open to her final entry: when they come for you, EM, and they will remember that truth is stronger than fear. The next day, we received an unexpected ally. A tech billionaire named Marcus Chen came forward, offering resources and protection. I had the vision too, he said simply. I know what's at stake. His support gave us legitimacy in new circles. Suddenly, doors that had been closed began to open. Scientists who had dismissed us began to listen. Religious leaders who had condemned us began to consider. But with each step forward, the urgency grew. The visions were becoming clearer, more specific. They all pointed to a moment of choice, a crossroads humanity would face, and time was running out. We need to go bigger, Lucy announced one evening. Local interviews and online posts aren't enough. The whole world needs to hear this, all at once. The United Nations, my father suggested. I have colleagues there. If we can present our evidence. It's already being arranged, Dr. Reeves interjected, entering the room with her usual perfect timing. The Vatican has been working on it. In 1 month, you'll address the General Assembly. I felt the weight of destiny settling on my shoulders. This was what Sarah had seen, what all those visionaries throughout history had prepared for, the moment when humanity would finally hear the warning in full. But as we made our preparations, I couldn't shake the feeling that dark forces were gathering. The men in suits appeared more frequently. Strange accidents befell people close to us. And my visions, which had never truly stopped, began showing new scenes of conflict, of choice, of consequences. We were approaching the moment of truth. The question was, would we survive to deliver it? The world was watching, waiting, awakening. And somewhere in the realm between life and death, Sarah was watching too. The day of the UN address dawned with an otherworldly stillness. New York City felt suspended in time, as if the very air was holding its breath. As our convoy approached the United Nations headquarters, I saw thousands of people gathered outside: believers, skeptics, the curious, the concerned, all waiting. Inside the General Assembly Hall, the atmosphere crackled with tension. Representatives from every nation sat ready to hear what this 16-year-old girl from Boston could possibly say that warranted such attention. The gallery was packed with religious leaders from every faith, scientists from every field, media from every country. Dr. Reeves sat with the Vatican delegation, her face serene but alert. Lucy and my father flanked me, their presence giving me strength. Marcus Chin had arranged unprecedented global coverage every major network would broadcast simultaneously, with live translation into over 100 languages. But something felt wrong. As I approached the podium, I noticed movement in the shadows of the upper gallery. Men in dark suits, but not the usual security. They moved with predatory purpose, their hands concealed beneath their jackets. I caught Dr. Reeves' eye. She had seen them too. I began my address as planned. Distinguished delegates, religious leaders, fellow citizens of Earth, I stand before you today with a message that transcends nationality, religion, and ideology. A message that has been trying to reach us for centuries. The words flowed naturally as I shared my story, Sarah's diary, the centuries of visionaries who had tried to warn us. On the massive screens behind me, Lucy's data displayed the undeniable patterns, the global awakening, the mounting evidence. Then, halfway through my speech, it happened. A sharp crack echoed through the chamber. For a moment, I thought it was a microphone malfunction. Then I saw the bullet hole in the podium, inches from my hand. Chaos erupted. Security swarmed. People screamed. But in that moment, something extraordinary occurred. The golden light, the same light from my near-death experience, filled the chamber. Time seemed to slow, and in that suspended moment I heard Sarah's voice, clear as day now. "Em, tell them now. Show them what you saw." Without conscious thought, I stepped away from the bullet-scarred podium. My voice, amplified by something beyond technology, filled the chamber. Look with your hearts, not just your eyes." And they did. Later, witnesses would describe it differently. Some saw visions, some felt emotions, some experienced memories not their own. But everyone in that chamber, everyone watching worldwide, experienced something that transcended normal reality. They saw what I had seen in death, the coming darkness, the choice humanity faced, the consequences of our actions and inactions, but also the hope, the incredible, powerful hope of what we could become if we chose wisely. The would-be assassins stood frozen, their weapons forgotten. Hardened diplomats wept openly. Religious leaders of faiths that had warred for centuries reached for each other's hands. For 7 minutes, the exact length of time I had been dead, the world experienced a collective awakening. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Then, from somewhere in the chamber, someone began to pray. Others joined, each in their own tradition. Christians, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, atheists all raised their voices in whatever way they knew how. My father, the scientist who had once dismissed all spirituality, stood weeping unashamedly. "I understand now," he whispered. "I finally understand." But our triumph was short-lived. As the light faded, the men in dark suits regrouped. This time they weren't aiming at me. A shot rang out. My father crumpled. "Dad," I screamed, running to him. Blood spread across his white shirt. He looked up at me, his eyes clear despite the pain. "Worth it," he gasped. "Finally. Worthy of being. Sarah's father, your father." The world watched in horror as Dr. James Wright, the renowned scientist who had helped bridge the gap between faith and reason, fought for his life on the floor of the UN General Assembly. Above us, the assassins were being surrounded, but the damage was done. The warning had been delivered, but at what cost? As medical teams rushed in, I held my father's hand and prayed, really prayed for the first time since Sarah's death. The world prayed with me, millions of voices rising in a chorus of hope and fear. We had reached the moment of truth. But it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of the real battle. My father survived barely. As he lay in intensive care at New York Presbyterian Hospital, the world erupted in a way no one could have predicted. The assassination attempt and the miraculous collective experience at the UN had catalyzed something unprecedented. The media called it the Great Awakening. Millions shared their experiences of what they'd seen during those 7 minutes. World leaders who had witnessed it firsthand called emergency sessions. Religious institutions opened their archives, revealing centuries of similar prophecies. Scientists launched new studies into consciousness and spiritual phenomena. But darker forces were also stirring. The would-be assassins were identified as members of a shadowy organization called the Rational Order, a powerful group dedicated to maintaining what they called cosmic ignorance. They believed humanity wasn't ready for the truth, that awareness of our spiritual reality would destroy civilization as we knew it. They've been working for centuries, Dr. Reeves explained from her chair beside my father's hospital bed. Every time a visionary came close to revealing the truth, they intervened. They were behind more deaths than we knew, including, I suspect, your sisters. Sarah's death wasn't suicide. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. We found evidence in the Vatican archives. They made it look like suicide, just as they've done with others. But they didn't count on her diary, or on you coming back. Lucy, who had been analyzing data on her laptop, looked up sharply. The patterns are changing. The visions people reported, they're intensifying. Something's coming, something big.
She was right. Over the next few days, as my father slowly recovered, reports flooded in from around the world. People weren't just remembering what they'd seen during the UN event, they were having new visions. Clear ones. Urgent ones.
Marcus Chin's global monitoring system tracked millions of identical reports. Everyone was seeing the same thing, a moment of choice approaching, a pivot point for humanity. But now they were seeing something else too, the forces that would try to stop us from making that choice. The rational order wasn't working alone. They had allies in governments, corporations, religious institutions, anywhere that power might be threatened by the truth. They launched a coordinated campaign to discredit everything we'd revealed. Mass hysteria, their experts claimed on news channels. Religious manipulation, their politicians declared. A sophisticated hoax, their scientists argued. But they couldn't explain away what millions had experienced firsthand. They couldn't erase the truth that had been written on hearts across the world. My father, growing stronger each day, became our strongest advocate. The assassination attempt had transformed him from a respected scientist into a living symbol of the battle between truth and suppression. I spent my life serving reason, he told reporters from his hospital bed, but I forgot that the greatest reason of all is love. What we experienced at the UN wasn't just a vision, it was a remembering of who we really are and what we're capable of becoming. His words sparked a movement. People began gathering in public spaces, parks, squares, churches, temples, to share their experiences and support each other. The barriers between religions started dissolving as people recognized the common truth at the heart of all faiths. But the opposition was growing too. The rational order and their allies began moving more openly, more aggressively. Supporters of the awakening lost their jobs. Witnesses were discredited. Some disappeared. Then came the biggest shock. Marcus Chin, our powerful ally, was found dead in his penthouse apartment. The official verdict, suicide, but we knew better. They're scared, Dr. Reeves observed grimly. They know they're losing control. And that makes them dangerous. She was right. That night, as I sat by my father's hospital bed, I had another vision, clearer and more urgent than ever before. I saw what was coming, a coordinated global effort to shut down the awakening, to force humanity back into spiritual sleep. But I saw something else too, the way to stop them. The truth that would set everything free. Dad, I said, taking his hand, I know what we have to do next. But it's going to be dangerous. More dangerous than anything we've faced. He squeezed my hand weakly but firmly. Sarah would be so proud of you, he whispered. And so am I. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Outside the hospital window, a white dove landed on the sill, just like the one from the day we read Sarah's diary. A sign, a promise. The final battle for humanity's spiritual awakening was about to begin. And this time we were ready. The attack came at dawn. We had gathered at St. Patrick's Cathedral for a global prayer vigil, representatives from every faith joining together in a powerful demonstration of unity. Thousands attended in person, millions more watched online as humanity lifted its voice in shared purpose. I stood at the altar beside religious leaders from around the world. My father, still weak but determined, sat in the front row with Lucy and Dr. Reeves. The morning light streamed through the stained glass windows, casting rainbow shadows across the congregation. That's when the first explosion hit. The blast rocked the cathedral's foundation. Smoke filled the ancient space as people screamed and ran. Through the chaos, I saw the men in dark suits moving with military precision, targeting specific individuals. "Emily, run," Dr. Reeves shouted, pushing me toward a side door, but I couldn't move. because in that moment I saw something that froze my blood. Lucy had been hit. She lay on the cathedral floor, blood spreading across her blue sweater. The same sweater she'd worn the day of my accident, the day everything began. No, I tried to reach her, but strong arms held me back. My father was already at her side, his medical training taking over despite his own weakness. "Stay with me, Lucy," he pleaded as he applied pressure to her wound. "Stay with me." Through the smoke and chaos, I heard her voice, weak but clear, the data. "Emily, it's all in the cloud. The pattern. They can't stop it now." More explosions rocked the building. The beautiful stained glass windows shattered, raining colored shards like tears from heaven. Religious leaders who had stood together in unity now lay scattered, broken, their blood mingling on the sacred ground. Dr. Reeves fought her way to us through the chaos. "We have to go. They're targeting everyone connected to the vision." But I couldn't leave Lucy, my best friend since childhood, the one who had believed in me from the start, who had used her brilliant mind to help the world understand what was happening. "Emily," she whispered as I knelt beside her, "remember what Sarah wrote about sacrifice, about love being stronger than death." Her eyes closed. "No, Lucy, please," I sobbed. "I can't lose you too." The men in suits were getting closer. Through my tears, I saw them systematically working their way through the crowd, eliminating anyone who had been part of our movement. "Emily," my father's voice cut through my grief. "We have to go. Lucy's sacrifice won't mean anything if they stop us now." He was right. Lucy had made sure our evidence, our data, our truth was safely stored where the rational order couldn't destroy it. She had prepared for this possibility, even if we hadn't. As Dr. Reeves and my father pulled me away, I saw something that would haunt me forever: the cathedral's great cross, illuminated by flames, standing defiant above the destruction, and beneath it, Lucy's body, peaceful despite the chaos, as if she had simply fallen asleep in the house of God. We escaped through ancient tunnels beneath the cathedral, guided by Dr. Reeves' knowledge of church architecture. Behind us, we could hear more explosions, more screams. The rational order was making its move, attempting to crush the awakening in one devastating strike. When we finally emerged blocks away, the magnitude of the tragedy became clear. Similar attacks had been launched at gathering places around the world. Everywhere people had come together to pray and share the vision, death had found them. My phone buzzed with messages from survivors reporting casualties: Rabbi Goldman in Jerusalem, Imam Hassan in Cairo, Buddhist leader Mei Chen in Bangkok, all gone. The forces of darkness had struck at the very heart of our unity. "Why?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "Why would they do this?" "Because they're terrified," my father said, holding me close. "What we've started, it's bigger than they can control. And fear makes monsters of men." Dr. Reeves looked at her phone grimly. "The Vatican is under lockdown. Half the College of Cardinals is dead. But they didn't get what they really wanted." "What's that?" I asked. "You, Emily. You're still alive. And as long as you are, hope remains." But as sirens filled the air and smoke rose from sacred places around the world, hope felt very far away. Lucy was gone. Our allies were dead or scattered, and the enemy had shown just how far they would go to keep humanity in darkness. The warning had come at a terrible price. We found refuge in an old monastery outside the city, where loyal members of Dr. Reeves' Vatican network sheltered us. The ancient stone walls offered protection, but they couldn't shield us from the grief that followed. News of the casualties kept coming. The death toll from the coordinated attacks rose into the hundreds. Religious leaders, scientists, witnesses who had shared their visions, all targeted with surgical precision. The rational order had struck not just at individuals, but at the very heart of humanity's awakening. I sat in the monastery's small chapel, Lucy's laptop open before me. True to her word, she had backed up everything: the data, the testimonies, the evidence of centuries of visionaries. Her final gift to our cause. But the price had been too high. I should have seen it coming. I whispered to the empty chapel. Sarah saw it. She wrote about a baptism of blood in her diary. Why didn't I understand? My father found me there, his own face marked by grief and exhaustion. Lucy made her choice, Emily, just like Sarah did. They believed in something bigger than themselves. But how many more have to die? How many more sacrifices before humanity wakes up? Before he could answer, Dr. Reeves rushed in, her usually composed demeanor shaken. "Turn on the news. Now." On Lucy's laptop, we watched in horror as the Rational Order revealed its next move. A spokesman, smooth, sophisticated, convincing, addressed the world. The tragic events at religious gatherings worldwide were the work of religious extremists, he declared. Fanatics driven mad by the mass hysteria started by the right girl and her followers. For the safety of all, we call for the immediate arrest of Emily Wright and her collaborators. They had turned it all around, made us the villains, made our message of unity and awakening sound like dangerous radicalism. "They're rewriting the narrative," my father said bitterly, "just like they did with Sarah's death." But there was worse to come. The spokesman continued, "Furthermore, we have evidence that the supposed visions were the result of an experimental hallucinogen developed by Dr. James Wright himself, tested first on his daughter Sarah, leading to her tragic suicide, and then on countless innocent victims." My father staggered as if physically struck. They had twisted everything, his research, Sarah's death, my experience, into a monstrous lie.
"The public will believe it," Dr. Reeves said quietly. "They'll believe it because it's easier than facing the truth, because it lets them go back to sleep."
She was right. Within hours, former allies began distancing themselves. People who had experienced the vision firsthand began doubting their own memories. The hashtags that had once spread our message now spread fear and condemnation. Then came the personal losses. My old school friends posted messages calling me a fraud. Neighbors interviewed on TV spoke about always knowing something was off about the Wright family. Even some survivors of the cathedral attack began questioning their own experiences. Lucy's parents publicly denounced me as responsible for their daughter's death. Each betrayal was a fresh wound. Each denial of truth felt like Sarah dying all over again. The weight of it all, the deaths, the lies, the loss of everything we'd built, became overwhelming. That night, alone in my small monastery cell, I finally broke. "I can't do this anymore," I sobbed into my pillow. "Sarah, Lucy, I'm not strong enough. I can't bear this burden." For the first time since my near-death experience, there was no answering voice from beyond, no comforting presence, no divine reassurance, just silence and darkness and grief. Outside my window, the stars were hidden behind storm clouds. The white doves that had followed us since the beginning were nowhere to be seen. Even the comfort of signs and wonders seemed to have abandoned us. Dr. Reeves found me there the next morning, curled up on the stone floor, Sarah's diary clutched to my chest. "When you're ready," she said gently, "there's something you need to see." But I wasn't ready. How could I ever be ready to keep fighting when everything we'd fought for seemed lost? How could I still believe in the power of truth when lies seemed so much stronger? The warning had been given, and the world had responded with violence and denial. Perhaps the Rational Order was right. Perhaps humanity wasn't ready for awakening. Perhaps some truths were too costly to tell. Dr. Reeves led me to the monastery's ancient library, where my father waited with an unexpected visitor, Cardinal Michael Romano, one of the highest-ranking officials in the Vatican who had survived the attacks. "Emily," the cardinal said softly, "what I'm about to tell you changes everything." He placed an old leather case on the table and opened it carefully. Inside was a collection of photographs, documents, and a single golden key. "This was entrusted to me by Pope Pius XII during World War II, he explained. "It contains evidence of the Rational Order's true origins and their greatest fear." The photographs showed familiar faces throughout history, the same faces appearing in different eras, different places. Men in dark suits who hadn't aged across centuries. "They're not human," Cardinal Romano said simply. "They never were. They're entities that feed on humanity's spiritual blindness. The more we deny our divine nature, the stronger they become." My father, the scientist, leaned forward. "That's why they've worked so hard to promote pure materialism, why they've killed anyone who came close to revealing the truth." "But here's what they don't know," Dr. Reeves added, pulling out Sarah's diary. "Your sister didn't just see warnings about the future. She found their weakness." She opened the diary to a page I'd never seen before, written in a code that only now made sense. Sarah had discovered that the rational order's power came from humanity's collective denial of spiritual truth. The more people awakened to their divine nature, the weaker these entities became. The attacks, I whispered, understanding dawning. They weren't just trying to silence us. They were fighting for survival, Cardinal Romano confirmed. But they made a crucial mistake. The violence, the deaths, especially Lucy's sacrifice, it's causing people to question everything. The very thing they feared is happening. He was right. Even as we spoke, reports were coming in. People weren't buying the official narrative anymore. Lucy's final data upload had gone viral, impossible to suppress. The truth was spreading faster than the lies could travel. But there's more, Dr. Reeves said. Show her. The Cardinal reached into his case and pulled out one final document, a prophecy written in 1214 by a mystic nun. The words made my heart stop. When the false ones reveal their violence, when the martyrs of truth fall in the house of God, look to the one who returned from death's door. For in her eyes lies the light they cannot extinguish, and in her voice speaks the truth they cannot silence. My father took my hand. Emily, you're not just a messenger. You're the key they've feared for centuries. Your near-death experience didn't just show you the truth, it transformed you into something they can't touch. I touched the ancient prophecy, feeling the weight of centuries of preparation. What do we do now? Cardinal Romano smiled. We give them exactly what they fear most. We wake everyone up all at once, and we know how. He pulled out the golden key. This opens a chamber beneath St. Peter's Basilica. Inside is something humanity has forgotten, something the rational order has tried to keep hidden since the beginning of time. What is it? I asked. The original mirror, Dr. Reeves said softly. The one that shows humans their true divine nature. Sarah found references to it in her research. And now, thanks to her diary, we know how to use it. Hope, real hope, began to stir in my heart for the first time since the cathedral attack. The truth wasn't just going to be revealed. It was going to be remembered. Getting to Rome seemed impossible at first. We were wanted in every country, our faces plastered across every airport and border crossing. But the Vatican had centuries of experience moving people in secret. Within hours, we were on a private plane, blessed by a church that had waited centuries for this moment. As we flew over the Atlantic, Cardinal Romano shared more revelations. The rational order wasn't just trying to keep humanity spiritually blind, they were preparing for something. The timing of their attacks, the intensity of their response to our message, all pointed to a crucial moment approaching. They need humanity to be asleep for what's coming, he explained. The mirror doesn't just show people their divine nature, it shows them their purpose, the reason we were created. In the plane's dim cabin, I opened Sarah's diary to the coded pages we'd never fully understood. Now, with the Cardinal's knowledge, the patterns became clear. Sarah hadn't just seen warnings, she'd seen the whole truth. The mirror, humanity's divine purpose, the rational order's true identity, everything. That's why they had to stop her, my father said softly. She didn't take her own life. They killed her because she'd discovered everything. The revelation hit me hard. All this time we'd believed Sarah had been too weak to bear the visions. But she'd been stronger than any of us knew. Strong enough to encode the truth in her diary, knowing someday we'd understand. Lucy knew, I realized suddenly. That's why she backed up everything to the cloud. She found patterns in Sarah's code that matched ancient prophecies. She knew what was in the Vatican archives before we even met Dr. Reeves. Dr. Reeves nodded. Lucy's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was the key that unlocked everything. Her final data upload included decoded portions of Sarah's diary that even we didn't know existed. As if confirming our discoveries, the plane's Wi-Fi suddenly connected, flooding our phones with notifications. Lucy's final upload had triggered something. People around the world were sharing new visions, clearer, more detailed than ever before. They're remembering, Cardinal Romano said, his eyes shining. Not just seeing visions, but remembering who they really are, who we all are. The rational order had tried to paint us as extremists, as dangerous fanatics. But their own violence had backfired. Each attack, each lie, each attempt to suppress the truth only made humanity's awakening stronger. Sarah knew this would happen, I said, touching her diary. She wrote, "When the darkness reveals itself, light pours through the cracks." As we approached Rome, dawn broke over the horizon. The sky turned gold, the same gold as the light from my near-death experience, the same gold Sarah had described in her visions. Below us, St. Peter's Basilica emerged from the morning mist. Somewhere beneath that ancient church lay the mirror that could wake humanity from its long sleep, the mirror that the rational order had spent centuries trying to keep hidden. They would be waiting for us, of course. Their agents would be everywhere. But they couldn't stop what was already happening. Lucy's data, Sarah's diary, the Vatican's archives, the global awakening, it was all coming together exactly as prophesied. "Look," Dr. Reeves said, pointing out the window. White doves flew alongside our plane, appearing impossibly high in the thin air. A sign, a promise, a reminder that we weren't fighting this battle alone. The truth wasn't just being revealed. It was coming home. The final battle wasn't fought with weapons or violence. It was fought with truth, with love, with the simple act of remembering who we really are. We reached the mirror chamber beneath St. Peter's Basilica just as the rational order launched their last desperate attack. But they were too late. Lucy's data had already spread worldwide. Sarah's decoded diary was being shared in every language. The Vatican's archives were open to all. The chamber itself was small, ancient, lit by light that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere. The mirror stood at its center, not grand or ornate, but simple, pure. Its surface rippled like water, reflecting not our physical forms, but something deeper. "Now," Cardinal Romano said softly, "it's time." I stepped forward, placing my hand on the mirror's surface. Sarah's final coded message had told us exactly what to do. The mirror wasn't meant to be hidden, it was meant to be shared. Its truth wasn't meant for one person or one faith, but for all of humanity. As my hand touched the surface, golden light exploded outward. Not just in the chamber, but everywhere. Every screen, every reflective surface, every pool of water on earth suddenly became a window to divine truth. The rational order's agents collapsed. Their true forms revealed empty shells that had fed on humanity's spiritual blindness. Without our denial of truth, they simply ceased to exist. But more importantly, humanity remembered. Not just their divine nature, but their purpose. The reason for all the joy and pain, all the triumph and tragedy, all the love and loss that made up human existence. We were never meant to sleep. We were meant to be conscious participants in creation's grand design. Every person saw their unique role, their special purpose, their individual thread in the vast tapestry of existence. Sarah had known. Lucy had known. All the visionaries throughout history had known. They hadn't died in vain, they had died knowing this moment would come. My father, watching the golden light transform the world, wept openly. All those years, he whispered. All that time spent denying what I knew in my heart to be true. Dr. Reeves smiled. "The greatest scientific discovery is the one you've just made, James, that love is the fundamental force of the universe." Cardinal Romano watched in peaceful satisfaction as centuries of preparation came to fruition. The Church's true purpose was never to control the truth, but to protect it until humanity was ready. And humanity was finally ready. Around the world, ancient divisions melted away, not into uniformity, but into harmony. Every faith, every culture, every individual perspective was revealed as a unique and necessary part of the whole. The awakening Sarah had foreseen, that Lucy had died protecting, that countless visionaries had struggled to bring about, wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. As the golden light settled into a permanent aurora around the earth, visible from space as a reminder of humanity's awakening, I felt Sarah's presence one last time. "You did it," her voice whispered in my heart. "You finished what I started, what we all started." "We did it together," I replied, knowing she could hear me. "All of us." The mirror continued to shine, not just in Rome, but everywhere truth was reflected. A constant reminder that what we'd discovered could never be hidden again. Humanity had awakened. And this time we would stay awake. 1 year later, I stood again at the United Nations, but everything was different. The Great Hall was filled not just with political leaders, but with representatives of humanity's great awakening. Scientists and spiritual leaders sat together, their ancient divide healed by understanding. People who had once been enemies now worked as partners in humanity's new purpose. My father had recovered fully and now led a new institute dedicated to studying the intersection of science and spirituality. His research was proving what mystics had always known, that consciousness, love, and divine purpose were woven into the very fabric of reality. Dr. Reeves and Cardinal Romano had transformed the Vatican into a center for global spiritual unity, where all faiths came together not to convert each other, but to share their unique perspectives on truth. The ancient prophecies and hidden knowledge were now open to all who sought to understand. In Sarah's old room, now a small museum visited by people from around the world, her diary lay open in a place of honor. Beside it stood Lucy's laptop, still running the programs that had helped decode the truth. They were remembered not as victims, but as pioneers who had helped humanity take its greatest step forward. The rational order had become a distant memory, a reminder of humanity's long sleep and the price of denial. Their empty suits were preserved in museums, teaching future generations about the cost of suppressing truth. But the greatest change was in everyday life. People walked with new purpose, understanding their role in the grand design. Children were taught not just about the physical world, but about their divine nature and the responsibility it brought. The golden aurora that surrounded Earth served as a constant reminder of our awakening. As I prepared to address the UN Assembly, I touched the small golden key I now wore around my neck, the key to the mirror chamber that had changed everything. But the real key, we had learned, was in every human heart. The mirror had simply reminded us of what we had always known. A year ago I stood here with a warning. Today I stand here with gratitude. We have remembered who we are, we have awakened to our purpose. But our journey is just beginning. The Assembly listened as I outlined humanity's next steps, not just spiritual awakening, but the practical work of building a world worthy of awakened beings. Environmental restoration, poverty elimination, conflict resolution, all approached with new understanding and purpose. Sarah and Lucy, I concluded, and all those who sacrificed to bring us this truth, knew something fundamental, that love is not just an emotion or a choice. It is the basic force of creation, the thread that connects all being, the power that can transform everything. As I spoke these words, the golden aurora outside the UN building seemed to pulse brighter. Around the world, people watching felt again the touch of divine purpose that had awakened them a year ago. My father joined me at the podium, along with Dr. Reeves and Cardinal Romano. Together, we represented the new unity of science, spirituality, and human purpose. The warning has been heard, I said. The truth has been remembered. Now our real work begins. Above us, through the UN's great windows, a flock of white doves circled in the golden light. Sarah was still watching. Lucy was still helping. All the visionaries throughout history who had helped bring this moment about were still with us. Humanity had not just awakened. We had come home to who we were always meant to be. And our story was just beginning. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. If our story of love, loss, and redemption has touched your heart, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel and support our team's mission to share stories of hope and healing. Your comments and thoughts mean the world to us. What moments resonated with you? Have you experienced similar struggles with faith and loss? Share your story below. Don't forget to like this video and share it with friends and family who might need a reminder that love transcends death and that healing is always possible. Together we can spread hope and light to those who need it most.